If we could please take our seats. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2020 Novi Police and Fire Department Awards Ceremony. I'm David Malloy, and I have the high honor and privilege of serving our entire Novi community and all these men and women as the Director of Public Safety and Chief of Police. I'd like to thank Novi Police Officer Eric Carlamusto for playing the bagpipes for our ceremony this evening. At this time, I'd like to welcome Reverend June Marshall Smith, one of our dedicated police chaplains, to perform our invocation.
Let us pray. Holy One, we are so blessed in the city of Novi to have women and men who work diligently for our safety and well-being, even when their jobs are difficult and often thankless. Today we pray for all first responders here and everywhere. Embolden them to vitally serve in difficult occupations so that they might be change agents for the sake of your name. Every shift first responders work requires them to be prepared and ready for whatever comes, to hone their skills, to prepare their instincts, and to give them the ability to stand strong. Fill them with courage. Help them to be aware of your presence and see their need for you in the most challenging situations. Please keep our first responders emotionally strong, but spiritually tender when they are confronted by evil and brokenness around them, that they might feel your peace when they deal with pain and the sufferings of others. O Lord, the families of first responders also experience much stress and fear. As a result, many marriages and relationships among first responders are strained. Bring your peace to their families. Help these men and women fix their eyes upon you so that they might love their spouses, that they might train up their children in godly ways, and help them find quality and quantity time with their families. Holy One, may our Novi community show our first responders how much they are appreciated, that these brave women and men might know that their God and the community supports them and cares for them. Give our citizens new and bold ways to thank them for their sacrifices. Send down your blessings upon these servants. We pray this in your holy name. Amen.
I'd like to begin our ceremony tonight with a moment of silence in honor of Chief Lee Bagol. As many of you know, Chief Bagol passed away this past Saturday at the age of 99. And, as we all know, he was the early architect here in Novi who grew public safety and grew the Novi Police and Fire Departments into the professional and conscientious organizations that they have become. You could please join me in a moment of silence for Chief Lee Bagol. Thank you. If we could all please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One of the greatest honors I have is I'm allowed to serve alongside all these men and women present here and those we will honor here tonight. It's truly the highest distinction one could ever imagine. And tonight we join together to recognize several outstanding individuals who have performed valiantly and professionally in service to our Novi community. Firefighters and police officers take risks and suffer great inconveniences to protect lives, defend civil liberties, secure the safety of our fellow citizens, and they endure such risks and tolerate such inconvenience on behalf of complete strangers, people they don't know, people they've never met, and they do it without one bit of hesitation. Our dispatchers and support staff work long hours and are responsible for much of the behind-the-scenes work so many take for granted. They are the behind-the-scenes unsung heroes many will never meet, but our work is not possible without them. These men and women we will recognize this evening are the heroes who run towards the danger when everyone else is running away. Tonight we honor their bravery and commend their sacrifice. I'd like to take a moment to introduce and recognize some of our special guests with us here this evening. If you could please hold your applause until we're finished. I'd like to thank Mayor Bob Gatt for appearing, Mayor Pro Tem David Stout, Councilmember Laura Casey, Councilmember Kelly Breen, Councilmember Hugh Crawford, Councilmember Justin Fisher, State Representative Kathy Crawford, and Mindy Fernandez, her legislative aide. The Honorable Judge David Law is here with us this evening. Thank you, Judge, for taking the time. Our City Manager Pete Auger is here, our Director of Communications Cheryl Walsh-Malloy, and our Director of Human Resources Tia Grunland-Fox. Please give them a round of applause for coming here tonight. This evening we come together as one with common values in our organization, our police and fire departments. Values of honesty, integrity, professionalism, honor, service, and duty. And they're not just words, but the core values all members of the Novi Police and Fire Departments possess and they emulate. We would ask our award winners, and they're a step ahead of me because they're already lined up, to please follow along in the program and line up in a queue with Lieutenant Tenard and Sergeant Meyer to assist our ceremony. As we call your name this evening, please join us by entering our left to your right, and then exit stage right where you receive your certificates from Captain Sogg and Lieutenant Wootnan. At the conclusion of tonight's ceremony, we will have an opportunity to take as many photographs as you'd like with our photographer and your family. Our Studio 6 video production team is live streaming this event via Facebook Live, cityofnovi.org, AT&T Universe, and Charter Spectrum. In addition, we are sharing some of these awards on Twitter at #NoviAwards20. At this point in time, if I could please have all members of the Novi Fire Department stand, raise your right hand, and repeat your oath of honor. On my honor, I will never betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or the public trust. I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions. I will always maintain a proficiency in the art and science of fire engineering and emergency medical services. I promise to faithfully and professionally honor my agency and the community I serve. Thank you. This time, if I could please have all of our men and women of the Novi Police Department stand and raise your right hand. On my honor, I will never betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or the public trust. I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions. I will always uphold the Constitution, my community, and the agency I serve. Thank you. At this point in time, I'm going to turn the program over to Chief Jeff Johnson for our first award winners.
The first award we have is Life Saving Award, NALOXONE. Officer Joshua Johnson, Lieutenant Mark Pearson, paid on call firefighter Anthony Roccolo, Officer Michael Walton, Officer Alan Hosham, paid on Fire Protection Officer Andrew Copeland, Fire Protection Officer Tim Porter, Fire Protection Officer Bashara Takla, Officer Scott Woodley, Officer Dan Jenkinson, Officer Andrew Hudacek, Sergeant Rachel Meyer, Officer Ryan Haney, Auxiliary Firefighter Parker Hosey, Auxiliary Firefighter Jeffrey Franklin, Officer Joshua Russell, Officer Joseph Matthews, Officer Stephen Finlayson, Officer Michael Daisley, Sergeant Bob Manar, Officer Jerry Webb, Sergeant Adam Elson, Fire Protection Officer Timothy Kronovich, Fire Protection Officer Ryan Cannon, Fire Protection Officer Michael Orlando, and Auxiliary Firefighter Stephen Behan. For the first time in 6 years, drug overdose deaths in Michigan were down 3.2% in 2008 to 2,599. Here in Oakland County, we saw 200 drug overdose deaths in the same year. There's no doubt that education, enforcement, and programs like National Drug Take Back have contributed to the decrease. Since the program started in 2010, National Drug Take Back has taken in almost 11 million pounds of unused drugs. Novi alone has taken back 2,200 pounds since 2010. These programs alone are not enough. In July of 2015, every member of the Novi police and fire departments were trained in the use of nasal naloxone, a life-saving antidote that reverses the effect of opiate and heroin overdose. When administered properly, an overdose victim becomes responsive within minutes, and in cases, they walk to the ambulances under their own power. Since Novi first responders began carrying naloxone in 2015, 87 lives have been saved. And in 2019, we responded to 24 opiate and heroin overdoses. In each case, the victims were found unresponsive with agonal breathing, and each of these first responders standing on the stage effectively administered nasal naloxone to a victim to save their lives. Together, these first responders saved 20 lives from an overdose in 2019. For their efforts, these first responders are awarded a life-saving award. National Fire Academy, Fire Marshal Kevin Pierce. The National Fire Academy is one of 2 schools in the United States operated by the Federal Emergency Management Agency at the National Emergency Training Center in Emmitsburg, Maryland. Operated and governed by the United States Fire Administration as part of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the NFA is the country's premier federal fire training and educational institution. The original purpose of the NFA, as detailed in 1973, reported to Congress, was, quote, function as the core of the nation's effort in fire service education, feeding out model programs, curriculum, and information. In November of 2019, Fire Marshal Kevin Pierce attended a 2-week fire investigation program at the National Fire Academy that utilizes the National Fire Protection Association's best practices for investigation and professional qualifications, addressing technical and scientific knowledge along with prerequisite skills to conduct successful fire investigations. Utilizing a combination of classroom, student activities, demonstrations, written assignments, and group projects to refine successful fire investigation methods. Please join me in congratulating Fire Marshal Kevin Pierce in completing the National Fire Academy Fire Investigation Essential Course. advanced degree. Captain Philip Dusminski. The Novi Fire and Police Departments take great pride in our team's member committing to lifelong learning. Nearly half of our command staff at the Novi Police and Fire Department have earned advanced degrees, while several others are currently pursuing degrees. Captain Philip Dusminski earned his bachelor's degree in 2015 from Columbia Southern University with a concentration in fire science. After earning his bachelor's degree, he continued his educational journey, earning his master's in business administration with a concentration of public administration from Columbia Southern University in 2019. I'd also like to point out that Captain Dusminski is currently pursuing his doctorate in business administration as well. Please join me in recognizing Captain Philip Dusminski for completing his master's degree. Fire Staff and Command is Charlie Roberts. Did he have to go out on a run? Okay, so next presenter is Assistant Police Chief Scott Batens.
Good evening, everyone. Detective John Zabik. The Novi Police Department investigated a pair of threats at the Detroit Catholic Central High School, which began on Friday, October 25th, 2019. Detective Zabik was called upon after an individual wearing a Guy Fawkes mask from the movie V for Vendetta was making threatening statements via social media towards students at the high school. With help from our federal partners, Detective Zabik conducted a comprehensive investigation that led to the identification of 3 Catholic Central students who were accomplices to the original poster who resided in Ohio. Following that investigation, on Thursday, October 31st, another picture of Guy Fawkes was being circulated among the students with the statement that during Mass on Friday, November 1st, everyone will be wearing masks and start killing. Additional Novi investigators were brought in and were able to quickly identify the original poster of that image, a student from Catholic Central High School who was not related to the first incident. All 5 individuals were identified and spoken to by law enforcement officials. Detective Zabik conducted a thorough investigation, although ultimately no criminal charges were issued. Those responsible students were identified, and the Catholic Central High School was able to resume normal school activities. School leaders noted after the investigation that they already had a very good relationship with Detective Zabik, and this event cemented their trust in his professionalism and service. Detective Zabik's comprehensive investigation quickly put the school, students, and parents at ease in a time when school violence is at the forefront of concerns. For his efforts, Detective Zabik is being awarded the Merit Citation. Congratulations. Detective Jeremy Stempian, Officer Tony Avant, Officer Michael Daisley, Officer Kyle Smith, Officer Jacob Roberts, Officer Christopher Clark. On August 26, 2019, the Novi Police Department was dispatched to the Apple Store in 12 Oaks Mall in regards to 3 subjects using fraudulent credit cards to purchase iPhones. When Officer Roberts arrived, he observed 2 of the 3 suspects exiting the mall and was able to detain one of them. The other suspect then took off running. Officer Smith relayed the direction of travel and suspect description to other responding officers who were actively setting up a perimeter. Officer Avant observed the suspect from his position when Officer Daisley's canine partner Aries gave chase through the woods in an effort to apprehend him. A short time later, Officer Clark caught the suspect as he tried to run across Interstate 96. The investigation revealed 3 suspects attempted to purchase over $4,000 worth of iPhones using fraudulent credit cards. Their identities, however, could not be verified through the fraudulent identifications the two suspects provided. Detective Jeremy Stempian was able to confirm the identity of both suspects and the fact that the credit cards used were forged. Both suspects pled guilty to identity theft and 4 counts of stealing and concealing financial transaction devices and are now serving 150 days in the Oakland County Jail. The third suspect was not identified. For the collaborative team effort and the successful prosecution of 2 criminals, they are awarded the unit citation. Congratulations. Sergeant Jason Meyer, Sergeant Rachel Meyer, Detective Stephen Baylog, Officer Jason Berchtold, Officer Michael Walton, Officer Deanna Stevenson. There is never a routine response to a police call for service. Things can dramatically change in an instant. That's what happened during the early morning hours of October 17th, 2019. Officers Berchtold and Walton just handled a family trouble call between a husband and wife. As they were driving away, they were dispatched back to the same address as the argument flared up again. Upon the return, things were much different this time. Officer Walton found the husband sitting in his car holding the handgun. Officer Berchtold radioed Officer Walton that the husband had just recently shot his gun toward his wife. Despite orders for the husband to get out of his vehicle, the suspect drove away. Officer Stevenson and Officer Walton pursued the suspect for 5 miles into the city of Walled Lake. The pursuit ended safely, and the suspect was taken into custody without incident. The firearm was not found in his vehicle, however. Police officers and firefighters searched the area of the suspect's home and route of travel, looking for the gun to no avail. Sergeant Jason Meyer and Sergeant Rachel Meyer found themselves running 2 separate scenes and doing so successfully while managing police services for the rest of the city. With time ticking and the fear of a child finding the loaded handgun, Detective Baylog interviewed the suspect, who eventually told him exactly where to find it. The gun was safely recovered from underneath a rock that might have otherwise not been located. The suspect was charged with carrying a concealed weapon, fleeing a police officer, 3rd degree, and felonious assault with a dangerous weapon. A trial date is scheduled later this year. For their field performance as a team, these officers are awarded the unit citation. Congratulations. Detective Stephen Baylog. As noted earlier in the program, there were 200 drug overdose deaths in Oakland County in 2018. The city of Novi is not immune to these tragedies. On March 19th, 2019, the Novi Police Department investigated a drug overdose causing death, with Detective Steve Baylog being the lead investigator. The investigation led to the identity of a suspect who not only provided drugs to the victim, but filmed the victim taking the drugs and then posting the video to social media. The investigation included countless interviews, multiple search warrants, and sustained contact with the victim's family. It is rare to identify a suspect who provided drugs to an overdose victim. Detective Baylog's commitment to the victim, their family, and his pursuit of relentless follow-up paid off. The suspect was charged with delivery of a controlled substance causing death, which carries imprisonment up to life. He is currently lodged in the Oakland County Jail awaiting trial later this year. Please join me in presenting Detective Baylog with a letter of commendation. Congratulations. Detective Eric Lindblade. Detective Eric Lindblade is currently serving his 2nd tour as a task force officer to the Drug Enforcement Administration Group Number 6. On June 14, 2016, Detective Lindblade, along with DEA special agents and task force officers from Group Number 6, executed 7 federal search warrants as part of a multi-jurisdictional takedown of the Real Money Life violent street gang led by DeMarco Tempo from the Polo Drug Gang. This is an organization that routinely used scare tactics to intimidate local residents and utilized vacant dwellings in the east side of Detroit to stash narcotics and weapons. The search warrants focused on blighted neighborhoods where suburban heroin users were dying from fentanyl-laced heroin distributed by the Polo Drug Gang. Since February 2016, the Polo drug gang had been responsible for over 35 confirmed heroin and fentanyl overdoses. Based on information received from the DEA Beijing office, agents were able to trace Temple's fentanyl purchases to a location in China. On June 14, 2016, the 7 search warrants resulted in the seizure of 610 gross grams of heroin, 169 gross grams of crack cocaine, $24,737 of U.S. currency, 3 handguns, and 2 vehicles. As a result of the operation, agents arrested 5 out of the 10 indicted members of the drug trafficking organization, to include their leader, DeMarco Tempo. In all, 15 members of the gang were indicted and convicted, with sentences ranging from 5 years to life in prison. For a sustained effort leading to successful prosecution, Detective LINDBLADE is awarded a letter of commendation. Congratulations. Sergeant Brian Wolowski. The Individual Achievement Award is reserved for those members who have selflessly given of themselves to participate in a special unit and performed exceptionally well during their tenure. In 2011, the Novi Police Department joined the Southwest Oakland Special Response Team with the West Bloomfield Police Department. At that time, 4 members of the Novi Police Department were assigned to the team, led by Sergeant Wolowski. The team leader, Lieutenant Eric Tilley of the West Bloomfield Police Department, said this of Sergeant Wolowski. Sergeant Wolowski was an original member of the Southwest Oakland Special Response Team. He was an assistant team leader, and his leadership was instrumental in the smooth operation of the team. Sergeant Wolowski handled much of the training as well as administrative details for the group. Sergeant Wolowski participated in approximately 30 special response team operations during his 8 years. He has an excellent tactical mind, and his presence on the team will be greatly missed. Sergeant Wolowski served the team with distinction and honor before proudly resigning in 2019. This is Sergeant Wolowski's 2nd Individual Achievement Award, the first being earned after serving as a task force officer with the Drug Enforcement Administration from 2005 through 2009. Please join me in honoring Sergeant Wolowski with the Individual Achievement Award. Congratulations. The next presenter will be Fire Captain Remo Oliverio.
Good evening. Back I have Captain Mark Tyson, Superior Medic Preston Drewitz, EMT Kelly O'Dorsma, Lieutenant Matthew Tenard, Firefighter Tabitha Tejero, Firefighter Amir Farahani. In the early evening of July 7, 2019, the Novi Fire Department responded to a report of a 2-car motor vehicle accident on eastbound I-96 west of Novi Road. The call was for multiple patients with injuries. Captain Tyson arrived on scene and was immediately directed to the rear of a passenger seat of a vehicle for an injured child. Captain Tyson found a 15-year-old male in the back seat, still belted, not conscious, and not breathing. Captain Tyson was able to manually open the child's airway with a modified jaw thrust. Immediately, the patient took a gasp of air. Reaching into his medical bag, Captain Tyson was able to get his BVM and administer respirations to the young patient. Superior medics Preston Derwitz and EMT Kelly O'Dersma jumped into action by assisting with respirations. It was determined that in the patient's best interest, they needed to get him to the hospital as quickly as possible. The patient was fitted with a cervical collar in order to help stabilize the patient's head prior to moving him. Captain Tyson, paramedic Derwitz, and EMT O'Dersma worked diligently to remove the patient from the heavily damaged vehicle. As soon as they were able to free the patient, additional crews arrived on scene, including Lieutenant Matthew Tenard, firefighters Tabitha Tejero, and Amir Farahani to assist. While in the back of the ambulance, a rapid trauma assessment was conducted by paramedic Derwitz. Captain Tyson made the decision to contact survival flight for the severely injured patient. Realizing how long it would take for the helicopter to arrive, it was determined to have a firefighter drive the ambulance, allowing Superior's crew full attention, attending to the patient in order to give the patient the best chance for survival. While this patient was being readied for transport, additional personnel on scene began attending to 3 other victims involved in the accident. The patient was at the hospital within minutes of leaving the scene of the accident. Follow-up from the trauma surgeon at the hospital stated due to the patient's injury, he only had a 1% chance of survival. The patient was brought into the emergency room, and while a CT scan was being performed, the patient went into cardiac arrest from the trauma of the accident. The patient was experienced cardiac tamponade, which is blood filling the sac around the heart. The patient was taken into emergency surgery, and over 2 liters of blood from his heart was removed. Later that day, the patient was flown by helicopter to University of Michigan's pediatric ICU. 4 days after the accident, the patient was awake and eating food on his own. We honor all of you for your quick actions and persistence by giving Captain Mark Tyson a life-saving award, Superior Medic Preston Durrance, and EMT Kelly Ordazma a civilian citation, Lieutenant Matthew Tenard, firefighters Tabitha Tejero, Amir Farahani, a unit of citation. Please join me in congratulating. We could have Lieutenant Pearson, which I believe he may have gone on a run, auxiliary firefighter Stephen Behan, paid-on-call firefighter William Litzinger, and auxiliary firefighter Joseph Eberlein. And Superior Medic Jessica Zeller and Kim Fujiwana. On the morning of May 18th, the Novi Fire Department responded to a medical at the suburban showplace for a male having a seizure. This day happened to be the 2019 Comic-Con convention. Ladder 1 with Lieutenant Pearson, auxiliary firefighter Stephen Beham, and paid-on-call firefighter William Litzinger and auxiliary firefighter Joseph Eberlein were out doing driver's training and immediately responded. As Ladder 1 pulled up to the front doors, they were advised by dispatch that CPR was in progress. This call now took a completely different direction. Superior ambulance arrived just behind Ladder 1 with paramedics Jessica Zeller and Kim Fujiwana. Crews were quickly ushered into the building by security staff to find a 63-year-old male lying on the ground in the ticket line. 2 bystanders were attempting CPR on a lifeless man. Immediately, Novi Fire and Superior personnel jumped into action. A quick assessment confirmed that the patient was not breathing and did not have a pulse. Lieutenant Pearson adjusted the patient's head and began breathing for the patient with a BVM. Firefighters Behan, Litzinger, and Eberlein took turns performing compressions and assisting with equipment. Firefighter Behan inserted a device known as a combi tube into the patient's airway to assist with respirations. Paramedic Zeller quickly connected the patient to a cardiac monitor and determined that the patient was in ventricular fibrillation. Immediately, a shock was delivered to the patient's heart and compressions resumed. At the same time, the patient was administered cardiac medications intravenously by paramedic Fujiwana. After 2 minutes passed, the monitor again displayed a shockable rhythm, VFib. Again, a shock was delivered to the patient's heart. A quick glance at the monitor displayed a faint but viable heartbeat. The patient was moved from the ground, placed onto a stretcher, and whisked out to the ambulance. It was determined that Lieutenant Pearson would drive and firefighter Eberlein would assist in the back of the ambulance with paramedics Zeller and Fujiwana. Although it is a short distance from the suburban showplace to Ascension, Providence, traffic for the Comic-Con event hampered the ease of travel. During transport, the patient's heart stopped again. The cardiac monitor displayed a shockable rhythm, a shock was delivered, and compressions resumed. Once at the hospital, the patient's care was transferred to the care of nurses and doctors in the emergency room. Uncertain of a positive outcome or not, crews were informed later that day that the patient was moved to an intensive care unit at the hospital. Although not a resident of Michigan, the patient made a full recovery and walked out of the hospital on his own. For all of your efforts and determination, we award Lieutenant Mark Pearson, firefighters William Litzinger, Stephen Behan, and Joseph Evelyn with the Life-Saving Award, and paramedics Jessica Zeller and Kid Vujana with the Civilian Citation Award. Please join me. If I could have EMT Trish Anderson up to the stage. To pull up my glasses on this one, the writing's a little small on this one, so excuse me. All right, on April 22nd, 2019, the Novi Fire Department was dispatched to the Team Rehabilitation Facility at 23655 Novi Road for difficulty in breathing. The patient was attending physical therapy after a recent hip surgery and suddenly became short of breath. 911 was called and Engine 3 arrived shortly after Engine 3's arrival. Fire Protection Officer Kassab and Fire Protection Officer Patrick Deneau began assessing the patient. As he addressed the breathing issue, the patient continued to deteriorate. The patient was administered the high concentrations of oxygen, and her vital signs continued to be monitored. Superior Ambulance Paramedic Jeffrey George and EMT Trish Anderson were updated by radio as to the patient's condition and were pulling up to the facility. Not seeing anything in her medical history other than a hip surgery and a lack of medications that are described to a patient after surgery, it was quickly determined that this may be due to a pulmonary embolism. This was consistent with their findings. The Fire Protection Officer Deneau was able to get a minimal amount of information from the patient before declining to a point where, if not able to speak, immediately the patient was placed on a stretcher and rapidly loaded into the ambulance. Due to the patient's assessment and declining condition, it was necessary to get to the hospital quickly. Fire Protection Officer Deneau jumped into the driver's seat in the ambulance so that paramedic George and EMT Anderson could both attend to the patient. Shortly after pulling away from the scene, the patient suddenly stopped breathing. Superior EMT Anderson began breathing for the patient with a BVM. Paramedic Jeff George began administering medication. The emergency department at Ascension Providence was updated by radio of the incoming patient's current condition. The emergency room staff were waiting their arrival in the ambulance bay. As the crews were wheeling the patient through the emergency room doors, the patient went into cardiac arrest. Life-saving efforts continued along with medications such as tissue plasminogen and clot buster, and 30 minutes, at which time the patient regained a pulse and woke up. It was determined that the patient was suffering from a large bilateral pulmonary embolism. These embolims developed due to the patient failing to take her prescribed blood thinners after surgery. The patient spent the next 10 days in ICU and eventually was discharged from the hospital. For your quick actions, rapidly identifying as a severe threat, we honor EMT Trish Anderson with the Civilian Citation Award. Please join me. Nice job. Congrats. The next awards will be presented by Assistant Chief of Police Eric Zinzer.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. Officer Jason Bergtold, Officer Eric Toby. On July 1st, 2019, at 10:12 p.m., Officer Toby was on patrol in the area of Haggerty Road in the I-96 overpass. He observed a female sitting on the west side of the overpass. She told Officer Toby she was just sitting there to enjoy the view. Officer Toby asked her to step away from the railing, and she refused. Officer Toby grabbed her arm and attempted to pull her away from the edge. She rolled halfway over the overpass and told Officer Toby to let her fall. Officer Bergtold arrived and grabbed the female as Officer Toby held on to her. Both officers were able to pull her back over the railing. The female stated she went there to end her life. Officer Toby and Officer Bergtold put their own life in harm's way, pulling the female back over the railing when she had every intention of ending her own life. In December of 2019, both officers were presented with the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 128 Life-Saving Award for their heroic efforts. Please join me in recognizing Officer Jason Bergtold and Officer Eric Toby with the Life-Saving Award. Officer Michael Daisley. Police officers often find themselves putting their own safety at risk, protecting citizens that they have never met. That was the case for Officer Daisley on the night of July 20th, 2019, when the police department was dispatched to the area of M5 near Haggerty Road at 1 a.m. The nature of the complaint was a rolled-over vehicle engulfed in flames. This is an area where 4 freeways come together. Despite the wrong location given, Officer Daisley was the first to locate the vehicle, rolled over in a wooded, swampy area. The vehicle was only located because Officer Daisley could see the smoke from the fire. Not letting the flames deter him, Officer Daisley put his own safety at risk and approached the burning vehicle. Thankfully, he did. Officer Daisley found the driver lying face down in the mud next to the vehicle. He quickly went into action, pulling the driver away from the flames. The driver was suffering burns from across much of her body, but was able to stand up and walk away. She was later transported to an area hospital for treatment. We recently spoke to the driver, who stated she was doing well and recovering from her injuries. For his selfless act of heroism, Officer Daisley is awarded the Life-Saving Award. Sergeant Rachel Meyer, Officer Andrew Hudacek, Officer Stephen Snell, Officer Eric Carlamusto, Officer Stacy Simon, Officer Jacob Roberts, Dispatcher Christina Vikstrom, Dispatcher Karen Asap. When the police radio rang out the night of February 16, 2019 at 9:56 p.m., the officers heard there were multiple people inside the 12 Oaks Mall with guns. 12 Oaks Mall security confirmed the call and added that one subject was pointing a gun at another group. Again, Novi police officers discarded their own safety and well-being, rushing into the mall, not knowing what they would be facing. Officer Rachel Meyer, Officer Hudacek, and Officer Roberts were the first to arrive. With pistols and rifles deployed, they entered the mall. They located the 5 juveniles, ages 14 to 15 years old. Officers could see the kids had guns and ordered them to stop. The kids, rather, took off running. Officers gave chase but lost sight of the kids in the back hallways of the mall. Not knowing where the kids had gone, officers continued their pursuit. They eventually located 2 guns lying on the floor. Mall security located the 5 juveniles on camera and relayed that they had exited the mall through the loading docks near the food court. Meanwhile, Officers Snell, Carlamusto, and Simon were directed to go to the food court loading docks. All these officers worked together to take all 5 juveniles safely into custody. Dispatchers Christina Vikstrom and Dispatcher Karen Asap became the officers' lifeline that night. They remained calm and quickly relayed the unnecessary information to the officers, enabling them to bring this heightened incident to a peaceful resolution. Later, we learned the 2 guns were actually BB guns. All 5 juveniles were from Ypsilanti and came to 12 Oaks Mall via an Uber ride. Their parents had no idea where they were at or what they were up to. All 5 juveniles were charged with brandishing a firearm. All 5 had extensive police contacts. In fact, 154 contacts between the 5 of them, including unlawful driving away of a motor vehicle, malicious destruction of property, carjacking, obstruction of police, intimidation, and armed robbery. On the night of the incident, all 5 juveniles were lodged in the Oakland County Jail for Children, and the case was forwarded to the Washtenaw County Juvenile Division for prosecution. Please join me in honoring these officers with a merit citation. Officer Josh Johnson. On December 28, 2019, Officer Johnson responded to the Kohl's department store where 2 subjects fled on foot from loss prevention. Officer Johnson located one of the suspects and took him into custody after he saw him running across Novi Road near West Oaks. It was later determined that this suspect had not taken anything from the store. Officer Johnson, however, did not stop there. Before he was released, the suspect told Officer Johnson the other subject's name was Troy. Officer Johnson used the first subject to his advantage. After releasing him, he continued to watch him. Officer Johnson watched him as he entered a local business to use a telephone. Once the subject left the store, Officer Johnson went into the store and asked if they would provide him the telephone number that was dialed. The phone number returned to a person named Troy. A driver's license photograph was obtained for Troy, and it was a positive match to the suspect that was captured on surveillance camera stealing from Kohl's and running from loss prevention. Officer Johnson continued to watch the first subject, who eventually was picked up by a vehicle near 12 Mile and Novi Road. Officer Johnson stopped the vehicle and arrested the driver, Troy. An inventory of the search revealed clothing that Troy was wearing during the retail fraud at Kohl's and other multiple items, including electronics, jewelry, alcohol. All were unopened and without receipts, and they were not in bags. These items were believed to be concealed stolen merchandise. Officer Johnson did an outstanding investigative work, and surveillance, not to mention his patience he exercised to capture the theft suspect. The driver was charged with retail fraud 3rd degree and driving while license suspended. The case is still pending. For going above and beyond with his relentless follow-up, Officer Johnson is awarded the Merit Citation. Sergeant Adam Elson, Detective Stephen Baylog, Officer Andrew Hudacek, Officer Josh Russell, Officer Stacy Simon, Officer Alex Marchioni, Officer Andrew Toth, South Lyon Police Officer Jonathan Schneeman. On Saturday, December 15, 2019 at 1:30 a.m., Officer Hudacek was patrolling the parking lots around 29 Park when suddenly, right in front of him, a suspect fired 4 shots into the air from a semi-automatic pistol. Officer Hudacek was just a few feet from the suspect. The suspect was not aware of Officer Hudacek's location and got into his own vehicle and started driving along Main Street. The suspect stopped, got out of his car, and began walking toward 29 Park. Officer Hudacek deployed his patrol rifle and began ordering the suspect to stop and get on the ground. He refused while hiding behind a large SUV. Officer Hudacek could see the suspect holding his hands in the air while walking in circles. Sergeant Elson, Officer Russell arrived to take the suspect into custody. Officer Toth retrieved the handgun from the suspect's vehicle, and Officer Simon, Marchioni, and Detective Baylog collected video footage and witness statements. To this day, it has not been determined where the rounds came down. South Lyon Police Officer Jonathan Schneeman was in the Novi Police Department dispatch center when the call came over the radio. Without hesitation, he went to the scene offering any assistance he could do. The suspect pled guilty to possession of a firearm under the influence and reckless use of a firearm. All of these officers came together as a team, performing individual tasks leading to a successful outcome. They are awarded the unit citation. Officer Brandon Bittis. Each member of the Novi Police Department is committed to the well-being and safety for all. That commitment goes well beyond the city of Novi. On July 19, 2019, a young woman was reporting that her friend was playing with explosives. The boy had sent a text saying, and I quote, "My life may or may not end, and I was going to set off a bomb." Although the boy would not disclose his location, he did send pictures. That was enough for Officer Bittis to go to work. He recognized the location as Gonzalez Mills in Hines Park, located in Plymouth, Michigan. Officer Bittis determined the boy was in the woods with potential explosive devices and alerted the Plymouth Police Department. The boy told the Plymouth Police Department he wanted to hurt himself with the intent to injure or kill a police officer. They used this information to formulate their safest plan of action. The boy eventually surrendered to police. The Michigan State Police Bomb Squad located 2 homemade pipe bombs and 2 cricket devices inside the boy's backpack. Those devices were defused, bringing this incident to a safe resolution. For his efforts and attention to detail, Officer Bittis is awarded a letter of commendation. Officer Brandon Bittis. Our elder population is among the most vulnerable to fraudulent activities. Although typically occurring through phone scams or internet, it can happen from a trusted individual in their own home. It is estimated there are 5 million elder abuse cases each year in the United States, with a cost of elder financial abuse reaching an astonishing $36 billion a year. On October 7, 2019, Officer Bittis responded to the victim's home on Bashian Drive. The 77-year-old victim suffered from health issues and as a result was unable to drive. She hired a home care worker to help check her oxygen tank, monitor her medications, run her errands, and take her to doctor appointments. Officer Bittis learned that the very individual our victim hired to help her had been fraudulently depriving her of over $9,000. The investigation uncovered thousands of dollars had been fraudulently charged to the victim's 4 different credit cards, and the suspect stole $500 cash from the victim. This all occurred within the first 3 weeks of the caregiver's employment. Like all of his cases, Officer Bittis conducted relentless follow-up. He took the initiative to contact the victim's bank and obtained video evidence of the suspect using the victim's credit card. Armed with probable cause, Officer Bittis returned to the victim's home and waited for the suspect to arrive. Officer Bittis immediately took her into custody. He obtained a full confession and recovered the missing $500 in cash. The Oakland County Prosecutor's Office charged the suspect with 4 counts of fraudulently using financial transaction devices, and this case is set for trial later this year. For his comprehensive follow-up and commitment to our elderly population, he is awarded a letter of commendation. Cadet John Reed. John Reed joined the Novi Police Department cadet cadre in 2015. He has excelled in the position. John has been one of the most dependable, exceptional employees in his time here at the Novi Police Department. He quickly learned the cadet position and became one of the more reliable cadets to date. Cadet Reed distinguishes himself not just by being a hard worker and dependable, but he strives to make continuous improvements to the cadet position and beyond. He revamped the cadet training program and currently serves as a lead trainer for incoming cadets. He has proven to be invaluable with cadet training. Cadet Reed took a leading role in implementing a new digital booking process with Sergeant Kulikowski and took it upon himself to make sure all of the cadets have been properly trained and are comfortable with the system. He created training manuals and checklists to ensure the proper training. He teaches the booking procedures during our department mandatory training, and Cadet Reed has proven his competence and commitment to training. Cadet Reed took the initiative to create a step-by-step cleaning list for cleaning personnel and fellow cadets to ensure that our booking area is always clean. Cadet Reed is a dedicated, loyal employee who not only excels at his position, but also never stops looking for improvements. For his commitment and can-do attitude, he is awarded a letter of commendation. Our next presenter is Fire Captain Mark Tyson.
Good evening. Sergeant Robert Menard, Captain Todd Saug, Firefighter Chris Bajeris, Firefighter Brian Egan, Officer Scott Woodley, Superior Paramedic Jessica Zeller, EMT Megan Burkhardt. On November 2nd, 2009, the Novi Police and Fire Department responded to a report of a possible suicide attempt by hanging. Dispatch updated responding units that the patient may not be breathing. Police Sergeant Robert Menard was the first arrived unit and witnessed 3 people attempting chest compressions on a young male in his teens. Sergeant Menard contacted dispatch to inform them that CPR was in progress and quickly attached his AED to the patient with no shock advised. Engine 3 arrived with firefighters Brian Egan and Christopher Bajeris and immediately reassessed the patient. They confirmed that the patient was still in cardiac arrest and continued chest compressions and began ventilating the patient. Captain Todd Saug, along with Superior Medic Jessica Zeller and EMT Megan Burkhardt, arrived to assist CPR, as well as additional life-saving interventions were initiated. Minutes went by as these crews worked diligently to resuscitate the young man. Due to their hard efforts, the patient regained a faint but noticeable pulse. The patient was positioned on a backboard to stabilize his spine before placing him on the stretcher for transport. Prior to leaving the scene, paramedic Zeller inserted an advanced airway in order to deliver the proper oxygen to the patient. In order for Superior's crew to continue care for the patient, firefighter Bajeris drove the ambulance to Ascension Providence, where emergency room physicians quickly assessed the patient. It was determined that the patient would be transported to Mott Hospital in Ann Arbor for further care after being stabilized. While Novi Fire and Superior EMS crews worked with the patient, Novi Police Officer Scott Woodley and Sergeant Menard worked with the father of the patient to gain vital information regarding the patient. This information was very important to the patient's continued care. Due to these injuries, the patient was placed on a ventilator to aid in his recovery. After a few weeks, doctors were able to remove the ventilator, and the patient was able to breathe on his own. Although his recovery will be slow and extent of brain injury is not yet fully known, the patient has been able to get around in a wheelchair. For your relentless efforts and determination, we honor Captain Todd Saug, Sergeant Robert Menard, Officer Scott Woodley, firefighters Brian Egan and Christopher Bajeris a life-saving award. Superior Paramedic Jessica Zeller and EMT Megan Burkhardt with a civilian citation. Congratulations. Lieutenant Josh Bunsey, Lieutenant Maria Reisner, Firefighter Michelle Coons, Firefighter Ian Patterson, Firefighter Jose Villanueva, Firefighter Jake Kroll, Officer Alex Marshoni, Officer Baha Al-Mufti, Dispatcher Kim White, Dispatcher Karen Asaf. Paramedic Kristen Thompson, EMT Kelly Andersma. Officer Corey Donberger of the Bloomfield Township PD. On the evening of October 23rd, off-duty Bloomfield Township Police Officer Corey Donberger was at the Parkview Elementary School playing a game of pickup basketball. While playing, he noticed that something was not right with one of the men that was at the game, and it appeared the man was having a cardiac issue and needed help. He ran over to the man and checked for a pulse, but could not find one and immediately started CPR. He was also told others to call 911. Novi dispatcher Kim White received the call for a male subject down on the gymnasium floor, unconscious, possibly breathing, at Parkview Elementary. Police and fire units were dispatched and quickly began responding. Officer Baha Al-Mufti was the first arriving as he entered the gymnasium. He noticed Officer Donberger performing CPR. Officer Al-Mufti quickly relayed the information back to dispatcher Karen Asaf, and CPR was now in progress. Dispatcher Kim White relayed the information to responding Novi Fire and Superior Ambulance crews. Officer Al-Mufti connected his AED to the patient as Officer Donberger continued with chest compressions. The AED assessed the patient and identified a shockable heart rhythm. The shock was delivered and chest compressions continue. Officer Al-Mufti continued to update dispatch, who in turn relayed this valuable information to all the responding resources. Officer Donberger had a pocket mask with him, and he was able to deliver rescue breaths while Officer Al-Mufti continued with chest compressions. Although through dispatchers White and Asaf continued to relay information to all the responding crews. Superior Ambulance Paramedic Kristen Thompson and EMT Kelly Andersma arrived as another shock was delivered. They quickly connected their cardiac monitor to the patient and began advanced cardiac life support protocols for the patient. The monitor continued to show that the patient was in ventricular fibrillation. Officer Alex Marshoni, Lieutenant Josh Bunsey, along with Engine 4 crew, Lieutenant Maria Reisner, Firefighter Michelle Coons, arrived on the scene shortly after. When they entered the gymnasium, Paramedic Thompson was working on establishing an advanced airway, and officers on scene were continuing with chest compressions. Lieutenant Bunsey was able to gather pertinent information on the patient from his son, who was present at the game. Bystanders witnessed the patient collapse and also gave important information to what had happened. Due to the nature of the call and the distance from the gymnasium to the awaiting ambulance, Lieutenant Bunsey made sure that this would be an easy transition. He radioed dispatch to have Engine 1 respond to the scene to assist with moving the ambulance to exit immediately outside the gymnasium floor. He also had them assist with loading and transporting to the hospital as necessary. As paramedic Thompson worked to obtain an IV access, EMT Andersma set up the IV. Lieutenant Bunsey prepped the medication box for Superior in order to get the medications to the patient more efficiently. By now, rescue breaths were administered through a secured airway with Lieutenant Reisner and firefighter Coons ventilating the patient. Engine 1 with firefighters Ian Patterson, Jose Villanueva, and Jake Kroll arrived on scene. They quickly assessed and moved Superior's ambulance to a closer location to the gymnasium where the patient could be quickly loaded, packaged, and transported. Officer Marshoni and Officer Al-Mufti were alternating chest compressions when Lieutenant Reisner noticed that the patient was attempting to take breaths on his own. Compression stopped as paramedic Thompson checked for a pulse and found a faint one. Due to the low number of respirations, Engine 4's crew continued to ventilate as paramedic Thompson administered cardiac medications prior to transport. All personnel assisting to lifting the patient into the stretcher as firefighters Patterson, Villanueva, and Kroll began to gather equipment, assisted with securing the monitor and the IV once the patient was on the stretcher. Crews flanked all sides of the stretchers and wheeled the patient to the waiting ambulance and loaded him for transport. Firefighter Kroll assisted paramedic Thompson in the back while firefighter Villanueva drove the ambulance. As the Superior crew was able to continue with advanced life support procedures while firefighter Kroll ventilated the patient. Upon arrival at Ascension Providence Hospital, nurses and doctors continued the care to the patient to the emergency room where he awaited a cardiologist that would reassess him. The patient did make a full recovery after spending some time in the ICU. For your quick actions and determination, we award Officer Baha Al-Mufti, Officer Alex Marshoni, Lieutenants Josh Bunsey and Maria Reisner, firefighters Michelle Coons, Ian Patterson, Jose Villanueva, Jake Kroll, dispatchers Kim White and Karen Asef with life-saving awards. Superior Medic Kristen Thompson and EMT Kelly Undermersa and Officer Corey Donberger with a civilian citation. We are also honored to have Bill Schultz and Joanna, the victims, here tonight. Grace Chin. On the morning of May 10th, 2019, the Novi Fire Department responded to a medical at Oak Point Church on 10 Mile Road. Upon arrival, Engine 4's crew was forced with a dilemma. The patient only spoke Chinese and was having a hard time informing the crews what was wrong. Seeing the opportunity to assist, Miss Grace provided both the Novi Fire Department and Superior Ambulance crews with an invaluable assistant. She served as an interpreter during this medical emergency. Communicating with the patient and relaying this information to personnel aided in the patient's medical treatment and care. Another thing that complicated this call was the patient at the church had her young daughter with her. Not wanting to separate the patient with her daughter, it was determined that the daughter would ride in the ambulance along with her mother. Again, seeing a way to help the situation, Grace offered to remain with the patient during transport in the ambulance to the hospital and continue to interpret it and calm the daughter during transport. Once at the hospital, Grace remained at the patient's side, aiding nurses and doctors, interpreting on the behalf of the patient. Normally, the hospital has staff that speaks Chinese, but for some reason today, there wasn't anybody. Grace was able to identify the medications that the patient was carrying with her, being that the labels were also printed in Chinese. She helped the doctors quickly diagnose the patient's condition and begin her medical treatment. Grace was instrumental in contacting and speaking to the patient's family and also volunteered to remain with the patient. She attended the patient's young child while we waited for the family to arrive and remained until the family members and the hospital interpreter arrived. Grace gave up her own time to act as an interpreter and to help another person in a time of need. For this act of selflessness, we offer Miss Grace Chin with a civilian citation. Dispatch Leader Janet Kaplan, and Dispatch Karen Asaf. Our 911 operators play a pivotal role in the police department. They are the first to answer the 911 call, and they are the first voice a caller hears after speaking with residents and community members at the height of their emergency. Dispatchers often become the lifeline for the callers that they've never met. They're silent heroes behind everyday public safety work. Our 911 operators are skilled in searching databases, pinging cell phone towers, and speaking with organizations like OnStar to locate missing vehicles while relaying this to the public safety personnel on scene. On February 20th, 2019, the police department was investigating a 72-year-old female. This female was driving herself from Ascension Providence Hospital Novi campus after being there to visit her husband, who was admitted. The woman never made it to her home in Novi. Dispatchers Kaplan and Asaf worked together as a team to essentially locate the missing woman. Working together to locate the license plate number through police databases and calling OnStar for assistance. The vehicle was showed to be in Waterford. While Dispatcher Kaplan stayed on the phone with OnStar, Dispatcher Asaf called the Waterford Police Department. As the team there were the lifeline between OnStar and Waterford Police Department, our dispatchers led them directly to the missing woman. The Waterford Police Department returned the missing woman to her home. For going above and beyond and exhausting all of the resources, they are awarded a letter of commendation. It's my honor for the final awards to be presented by the Chief of Police Director, Public Safety, David Malloy.
Sergeant Bob Manar and Detective John Zabik. As you heard earlier, the police and fire departments take great pride in our team members committing to being lifelong learners. They're leaders looking to become more knowledgeable to ensure our sustained commitment to excellence and quality service delivery. It doesn't happen by accident that over half of all of our command staff at the police and fire departments have earned an advanced degree, while several others are pursuing their degrees. This is virtually unmatched by any other departments in this area. Sergeant Bob Manar holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Criminal Justice for the University of Michigan in Dearborn. He's been an outstanding member of the Novi Police Department's Uniform Operations Division as a uniformed police officer, a field training officer, and now as a sergeant, a first-line supervisor. His commitment to excellence through his higher education was on bright display when he earned his master's degree in criminal justice from Michigan State University on May 3rd of 2019. Detective John Zabik earned his Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice from Wayne State University and a Master of Arts degree in theological studies with an emphasis on philosophical theology from Liberty University in 2015. John has served as a police officer and for the last several years has been our school resource officer at Novi High School. In 2017, John went on to earn an additional master's degree of religious education from Liberty University. In 2019, he earned a postgraduate doctoral research degree, a master's of theology with an emphasis on historical theology and doctrine, also from Liberty University. He also is currently in the process of exploring a doctoral program to continue his theological and scriptural studies, always looking for new educational opportunities to enhance his academic and leadership skills. I would ask you all to please join me in recognizing these two gentlemen as they are awarded the Advanced Degree Award. Congratulations. Sergeant Amanda Kulikowski. Each year, Eastern Michigan University hosts the School of Police Staff and Command Executive Leadership Program. This group of police command leaders meet for 1 week a month for 9 months. Each class is filled with executive leadership training, which provides upper-level academic instruction in a total of 5 core or mandatory blocks of instruction and utilizes over 30 additional optional blocks of instruction during each session. Major topics of study include leadership development, planning and decision-making, ethics, human resource management, administration of the police agency, managing critical incidents, homeland security, and leading in the 21st century. In 2019, Amanda Kulikowski joined 45 law enforcement professionals representing 38 different communities. She successfully completed this rigorous program with honor and distinction, and for that, I'm very proud to recognize her with the Staff and Command Executive Leadership Award. Congratulations. Could I please have firefighter Greg Liss? Firefighter Gregory List joined the Novi Fire Department in March of 2007. His interest in the fire service started years earlier when he wanted to emulate his uncle, who was a Detroit firefighter. As life, his family, and career continued on, Greg's calling took him in a different direction in the age of evolving technology as he spent several years in the field of computers and electronics. In 1979, Greg began as a computer program for the Kmart Corporation in Troy, Michigan, on a system that supported imported products. Shortly thereafter, he took a job as a programmer with the Detroit Diesel Division for General Motors in their automated parts distribution center. It was here that an opportunity surfaced. He was able to transfer to the operating team that supported a mainframe system for the entire company. Shortly thereafter, General Motors acquired a company, Electronic Data Systems, or EDS, where Greg worked for 28 years sustaining their mainframe system. Once at a comfortable level with his family and career, Greg began to think about how he could give back to the city that he lives in and loves. It was not long after that he was working in his yard and he spotted our old Squad 4 driving by his home. The thought brought back to his earlier desire to help others. While visiting Novi City Hall one day, he spotted a flyer looking for residents to join the Novi Fire Department. After a short discussion with his wife Gail, daughters Kimberly and Christina, Greg called the number listed on the flyer, and shortly thereafter, he was hired. Firefighter List attended the Brighton Area Fire Academy, where he received his Firefighter 1 and 2 certifications, his Emergency Vehicle Operator, and his Hazardous Material certifications in 2007. Following that, he attended a basic emergency medical technician course in Wixom, Michigan. In October of 2008, he received a State of Michigan EMT basic license. Firefighter List has always projected a positive image for the Novi Fire Department. He's the embodiment of the enthusiasm required to be a professional firefighter. Greg has become an active member within the department by recommending improvements for life safety, not only within the department, but also for citizens championing numerous endeavors. Seeking a need with the growing number of child safety seats we inspect daily, Greg stepped up to assist and obtained his technician certification through the Safe Kids organization. Just last fall, he took it upon himself to contact Safe Kids organization and organize during one of their monthly events an opportunity for the organization to come out and sign off on the renewal and certification of not only all of our members of the Novi Fire Department, but also our neighboring Northville Fire Department. Right away, you could tell that Firefighter List possessed a unique quality. Although shy and reserved, he has a knack for analyzing things. Going out of his way to understand processes and try to make things better, Greg always challenges the notion, is there a better and more efficient way? During Craig's time with the fire department, he's exhibited an internal quality to encourage others to do their very best on whatever endeavor they select. A person that's not going to wait for things to happen, he's a catalyst to accomplish any goal. One example was when Greg took it upon himself to find a replacement handle bracket for one of our engines. He contacted local companies and went on his own to retrieve the part once located. The business was so enamored with what Greg was doing, they gave him the part free of charge, and they would not take any money. Wanting to thank him for their generosity, he graciously went to a local store, purchased some adult beverages, and gave them back as payment for the workers. He's claiming that's not true. During his time serving our community, he has worked with numerous probationary members of the organization to mentor them and provide them the opportunity to grow and gain confidence, the necessary skills they need in becoming a seasoned firefighter. He fosters a positive learning environment that provides firsthand knowledge from his own experiences. When you ask his coworkers to describe Greg, you can consistently hear dedicated, respectful, enthusiastic, positive, dependable, caring, skillful, and modest. He's also devoted his own time to improve the quality of life for those in our community by participating in the annual Shop with a Hero program, our Addicted to Movies Not Drugs, the Novi Police and Fire Benevolent Events, and the Novi Goodfellows. Firefighter List received a Life-Saving Award in 2018, was awarded the Novi Public Safety Employee of the Month in January 2016, and numerous thank you letters, including one from a patient who was trapped in a motor vehicle in a crash on M5, thanking Firefighter List for his compassion and professionalism. For all his accomplishments, it is my distinct honor and privilege to recognize firefighter Gregory List as our 2019 Novi Fire Department Firefighter of the Year and thank him for his continued dedication to the safety of our community. Congratulations. Congratulations. This is also yours. You want me to hold on to them? You can speak.
Thank you all. First and foremost, I'd like to thank my family and my wife, Gail, for helping me through all of these things and encouraging me to pursue this. And all the members here, it's a great organization to be part of, and I hope to continue on for many years. Thank you very much.
Mr. Dan Doss. Dan Doss grew up in Waldorf, Minnesota, graduating from Waldorf Pemberton High School. He went on to earn a Bachelor of Science degree in electronic engineering for the University of Minnesota. Committed to learning, he continued his formal education, earning a master's degree in business administration from Minnesota State University. Dan Doss settled in Novi twice with his wife Theola, first in 1984 before he relocated to Tucson, Arizona for work, and then he returned to Novi in 1991, where he and Theola still live today. After serving 42 years as a project engineer and account manager for various firms in the automotive supply industry, Dan was far from retired. He still had a desire and a passion to give back to his community. He joined our Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT, in 2007, and he's maintained a steady commitment to our city year after year and has never broken his promise to serve as a volunteer. It's worth noting that Dan was still employed full-time when he joined our CERT team and made the transition to our Volunteers in Public Safety, or VIPS team, in 2016. He's committed over 500 hours of volunteer service to our CERT group, including leadership meetings, classroom instruction, CERT activation, and performing numerous assignments for the program. His latest project for our CERT group was overseeing a rooftop antenna installation for our CERT communication radios, ensuring community-wide communication for all the volunteers during times of activation. When Dan is not volunteering his time with the CERT team, he is committed to his second volunteer job with us, the VIPS team. He's dedicated over 750 hours to patrolling our parks, our subdivision, enforcing handicap parking violations, and our vacation home watch checks. While conducting a particular home check last year, Dan presented his department identification to the Ring doorbell camera, bringing comfort to the residents so they could enjoy their vacation while he was checking the security of their house. This is just one of many examples of Dan's professionalism and commitment to providing the utmost quality of service to the community he calls home. If volunteering for the city of Novi is not enough, he also volunteers for his church and currently serves as the secretary for his homeowners association. In that role, he led a team in design, purchase, contracting, and the installation of a stone sign for his subdivision entrance. Dan Doss learned the value of responsibility when he was 10 years old, working in his family store. Novi's emergency manager, Mr. Marshall Johnson, says this about Dan, quote, Dan Doss is my right arm when it comes to delegating assignments and taking a leadership role in the program. His development of our new recruits and leading others is invaluable. The unique thing about Dan's attitude is he never refuses a request from me. He never complains, and he's always ready and able to step up and volunteer for any assignment that we might have. This program would not be able to reach the heights expected without volunteers like Dan Doss, end quote. Dan's character is defined by his reputation, commitment, and dedication to service. He's an exemplary individual, one of the best among his peers. What really stands out about Dan are his personality traits. He always displays a pattern of behavior, temperament, and emotion that separates him from other volunteers. Dan and his wife Theola just recently celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, and they enjoy sharing their time with their 3 daughters, Stephanie, Heather, and Catherine, and 4 grandchildren, all of whom reside in Southeast Michigan in close proximity to one another. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Doss exemplifies the definition of volunteerism, and it is with my high honor that we recognize him and honor Mr. Dan Doss as our 2019 Volunteer of the Year. Congratulations.
Wow, I don't know what to say. It's truly a humbling experience. You know, there are almost 90 other CERT volunteers in this organization, about another 35 or so volunteer in public safety, the VIPS team. And I guess I would have to accept this on all of their behalf, because without them, there's nothing that I as an individual can accomplish or do. So we as a team, thank you.
Miss Yulia Harris. Yulia Harris grew up in the St. Clair Shores area, graduating from Grosse Pointe North High School in 2009. She went on to Wayne State University, earning a Bachelor of Arts and Science in Slavic Studies in 2015. She continued her advanced education, earning her master's degree in Business Administration from Wayne State University in August of 2018. Yulia first joined the City of Novi as a graduate management analyst before she joined the Public Safety Executive Team in June of 2018. She has embodied everything the Novi Police Department stands for in her transition, including building partnerships and building public trust at every opportunity. She immediately immersed herself in various committees, including our Employee Wellness and Engagement Committee, as well as our Public Safety Innovation Committee. Both of these initiatives are designed to improve the health of our employees and enhance our quality of life while providing new methods to build trust and legitimacy with our community through the most efficient, contemporary practices in public safety. Believing in being a lifelong learner, Yulia graduated from the International Association of Chiefs of Police Women's Leadership Institute, as well as the Women's Leadership Institute program. In addition, she is also a certified crime analyst through the International Association of Law Enforcement Intelligence Analysts. She has a unique ability to collect, conceptualize, analyze, interpret, and prepare data in order to evaluate police and fire operations and our problem-solving efforts on a daily basis. Yulia can always be counted on for a smile, and it's a pleasure to be around her. In just a short period of time, we all recognize the value and insight she brought to fruition in our organization on a daily basis. One of Yulia's core responsibilities is to assist investigators with criminal intelligence by linking regional criminal cases to events that may have taken place in Novi. She creates daily intelligence bulletins that are shared with our law enforcement partners, both locally and on the federal level, to assist in the identification of suspects and the suppression of crime. She is also extremely proactive with our retail fraud community and hosts intelligence meetings with various retailers, allowing different retailers to compare case notes and compare suspect information. One of Yulia's early goals was to restructure our Computer Comparative Statistics, or CompStat, initiative. CompStat is an integral component of our internal information sharing that is used to make timely and informed decisions on crime trends, accident locations, fire prevention, and the deployment of our resources. Yulia made the content more dynamic and relevant to the daily operation of our public safety teams. She also created and implemented real-time police and fire dashboards on the city's eWeb, making timely statistics available 24/7 for our teams to make informed decisions on resource deployment with regards to trends, accidents, prevention, and response times. She's helped coordinated the creation of implementation of our pink police car, along with Sergeant Amanda Kulikowski. This initiative was debuted at the Susan G. Komen 3-Day Walk in August of 2019 and was welcomed with overwhelming thanks and gratitude. The car was created to raise breast cancer awareness and for people to sign throughout the month of October with the name of a loved one or a wish for someone who has been impacted by breast cancer. Proceeds of this proactive initiative went to benefit a local charity the Ascension Providence Hospital's Assyrian Cancer Center Believe in Miracles Fund, in which Yulia attended every event and assisted with promoting the cause and the collections of funds. Over $4,500 was donated as a result of this initiative that she and Sergeant Amanda Kulikowski initiated. Yulia is the voice behind the Novi Police Department's Twitter account, which has nearly 1,900 followers. She's constantly synthesizing new content, pictures, videos, information based on current events and trends throughout the year. She routinely posts dynamic and engaging tweets that not only keep the community informed, but also amused when appropriate. A majority of the content that comes from the public safety team, whether it's a PowerPoint presentation, a Twitter post, crime statistics, crime bulletin, all have Yulia's fingerprints on their creation. She's embraced an opportunity to seek additional ways to communicate with the public and takes it upon herself to satisfy her job description line of other duties as assigned. Always offering to help out when needed, Yulia is a welcome addition to our public safety executive team, and she's carved a completely new path, in this performance analyst position, never been done before, and I can't express to you enough of how proud I am of her accomplishments in such a short period of time. In all of her assignments, she embraces going above and beyond, going the extra mile, and is always eager and excited to help. She truly embodies the team spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in honoring Ms. Yulia Harris as the Novi Police Department Civilian Employee of the Year.
It's honestly an honor to work with all the public safety team here in the city, and thank you to the team, my colleagues, for recognizing this, and yeah, just thanks.
Detective John Zabik. A little over a year ago, I was approached by the president of the Novi Rotary Club to create an honor and an award in memory of an individual who's truly impacted public safety here in the city of Novi. Then President Lee Momola offered the idea of creating the Lee C. Begole Police Officer of the Year Award. Last year, we were able to honor our first recipient, and this year, we will honor our second recipient. I see many of our Rotary members here in the audience this evening, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank them for partnering with us on this award. Thank you. Detective John Zabik began his law enforcement career as a police cadet with Wayne State University Police Department in 1989. He later joined that department as a police officer in 1994 after graduating from the Detroit Metropolitan Police Academy. We were fortunate that Detective Zabik joined the Novi Police Department in February of 2003 after serving 9 years with Wayne State University. He served in our uniform patrol operations until 2012 when he was reassigned to his current assignment as a school resource officer in Novi High School. John and his lovely wife Nicole have one son, Douglas. You heard earlier of John's educational achievements, including his bachelor's degree, his 3 master's degree with postgraduate doctoral research, and an emphasis on historical theology and doctrine, all from Liberty University, and the fact he's pursuing a doctoral degree to continue his theological and scriptural studies. As the school resource officer, or SRO, John took on a new commitment, a steadfast obligation to ensure the schools in Novi are safe learning environments for all our children. John has never once wavered from that commitment. In 2015, Detective Zabik expanded his role as an ALICE instructor. ALICE is an acronym for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. And it goes beyond traditional lockdown methods by providing individuals with a new set of skills that will greatly increase their odds of survival during an incident of active violence. ALICE empowers individuals to participate in their own survival, and John Zabik has made it his mission since 2016 to train every teacher in the Novi School District, as well as teachers at Detroit Catholic Central and the Novi Christian Academy, to be trained in the ALICE model. The Novi School District is recognized as a leader in Oakland County for the ALICE program, and the Walled Lake School District asked Detective Zabik to be part of their initiative, guiding them through the ALICE protocol. Just this past Tuesday night, Detective Zabik assisted a local elementary school in the Walled Lake District, along with Detective Warren, in training their staff on the Alice model. During 2019, Detective Zabik has led the way with significant changes, making Novi High School and all our district facilities safer. Over the past year, he organized tours of the Novi High School, Detroit Catholic Central, and the Novi Christian Academy for all first responders. The purpose was to orient them to the facilities as well as to learn building terminology that will be used by staff communicating during a crisis event. This initiative will give first responders the ability to communicate and coordinate more timely and efficient resources to emergencies in these locations. In an effort to increase our police presence in the Novi High School, John Zabik partnered with school officials to relocate a new school resource officer office with a direct view of the cafeteria and the main entrance atrium where all visitors must report. The new Novi Police Wildcat substation was updated with a professional appearance and a clear Novi Police identity. Detective Zabik worked with our Integration Solutions team to set up a computer workstation in the office so our uniform officers can utilize the office for large investigations which may require additional computer or paperwork. This initiative will benefit the community and enhances our police presence in and around the Novi High School. It is truly a first of its kind and is a visible statement to students, our teachers, and our visitors that we take the safety of our students very seriously. Another safety initiative in 2019 was to get first responders proximity access cards to all Novi schools. John took this initiative and it was completed by April and again allows all of our first responders the ability to access any proximity doors at any school in the event of an emergency or an act of violence. An emergency response plan is only as good as those who practice it. Detective Zabik worked hand in hand with Marshal Johnson, our emergency management coordinator, and planned for months on an exercise which would simulate an active shooter full-scale response within the Novi High School. The exercise was held in June of 2019 and was the culmination of a year's worth of planning by our emergency management team, our police, our fire, and our colleagues at Superior EMS and the staff of Novi High School. In addition, dozens of volunteers from the high school community, consisting of students, staff, and the administration, participated in the event. The intent of the exercise was to simulate an active shooter event where the high school ALICE protocol and crisis communications protocols were put to test under the stress of a simulated violent attack. The initiative was useful in demonstrating areas of improvement for both the school and the public safety, as well as encouraging steps for school officials to see their progress on preparation, planning, and future ALICE training. Following this full-scale exercise, Detective Zabik works diligently with Principal Nicole Carter and her team to acquire Stop the Bleed kits for every classroom in the high school. The district is currently analyzing a funding source to ensure the commitment is achieved for not only the high school, but achieved for the entire school district. This past fall, the community school district revamped their radio system. Pursuant to receiving grant funds awarded for a Michigan school safety grant, the district purchased digital UHF radios, allowing school buildings to communicate with one another on a central crisis channel. John Zabik secured 3 of the radios, which will afford our police department the ability to join the conversation chain directly in the event of an act of violence at one of our schools. John Zabik has made it his passion to blend his educational background with safety and security in our local houses of worship. On September 7th, 2019, Detective Zabik took the lead once again in planning, organizing, and presenting our second Houses of Worship seminar, where over 150 individuals representing dozens of regional faith communities gathered at Brightmoor Christian Church in Novi for a seminar on safety and security in the worship place. This was a result of, again, months of planning and preparation by the members of the police department as well as our partners at Brightmoor Christian Church. Attendees represented faiths including Jainism, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. Guests ranged from distance spanning across the great state of Michigan and Ohio. And the presentation focused on theological considerations for safety and security in the faith-based environment, enhanced targeting for soft targets, as well as ALICE options and the responses to an act of violence. These presentations were delivered by Sergeant Robert Minar and Detective Zabik, and the program was recognized by the Crime Prevention Association of Michigan, stating the presentations were innovative, professional, and completely unique. In October of 2019, Detective Zabik and Sergeant Renard received the Crime Prevention Association of Michigan Outstanding Special Project Award for 2019 as a result of their conscientious efforts in delivering the Houses of Worship Safety Program. During the summer months, when schools are not in session, Detective Zabik is assigned to our investigation sections and carries a caseload of open cases. In addition to his investigative work, John is one of the co-leaders who coordinates the very successful Novi Police and Fire Youth Leadership Academy. This program is designed for high school students, teaching them leadership skills, challenging their physical abilities, building positive teamwork, enhancing trust, and showing them the behind the scenes of public safety operations. This prevention and relationship building program has seen over 500 students graduate with valuable life skills, and several have gone on to pursue careers in law enforcement, the legal system, and the fire service. The 2019 Academy was widely recognized by staff and participants alike for being truly unique as Detective Zabik, Detective Warren, and Fire Protection Officer Duneau revamped the program to encourage more participation, more team building, more trust building, as well as positive mentoring relationships between the instructors and the participants. At the graduation on one late Friday afternoon, many of the parents who were in attendance commented how their normally quiet teenagers at the dinner table spent hours raving of their accomplishments in the academy and the experiences they had with the teams in the Novi Police and Fire Department. This was in no small part to the efforts of our team, led by a leader in John Zabik. I can't emphasize enough how Detective Zabik has grown into a trusted individual and a leader, not only within the police department, but throughout the Novi community schools, surrounding school districts, and our community and state as a whole. It is a high honor to award Detective John Zabik as our 2019 Lee C. Bagol Police Officer of the Year. Congratulations.
All right, well, you gave a theologian a microphone, so dig in, right? Just real quick, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Assistant Chief Zinser, Assistant Chief Batens, certainly Detective Sergeant Gilmore, for your faith and trust in me to work independently away from the building and the schools in such a creative context to go after some of these projects and see them through. Your support means everything. Certainly, she's not here today, but that same thing could be said for Nicole Carter, who allows us to work in her school and participate as part of her leadership team there. And, you know, her fingerprints are over any number of the things that the chief just read about, and a lot of ideas that she's given and allowed me to see through, as well as things that she's helped see through that maybe I thought of, and she deserves a lot of credit, maybe more so than me in a lot of those respects. I just want to thank my pit crew for being here today. My beautiful wife, Nicole, she's so talented and creative, and she's my inspiration. My father, Bob, who is my influence, him and my mother have set an example for me that I can just, I'm humbled by it, and I do appreciate you all being here. My son, Douglas, who is such a talented, creative young man. I'm proud of you, and just a special shout out to Xavier Martin, who I met in that academy 7 years ago, and is growing into a fine young man who has himself dedicated about 4 years of his life to come, 4 days out of his year this year to help with our Police and Fire Leadership Academy as a volunteer, as well as the Houses of Worship seminar to get people checked in and help the presenters and whatnot. I appreciate y'all and all your support. I'm humbled because of all the heroism that's been recognized today. This hardly seems like it scratches the surface of the great work that you all do day to day. So thank you, Chief. Thank you, everybody.
As you all might imagine, these ceremonies don't happen by accident. They're the result of comprehensive planning to ensure all the details are polished and professional. I'd like to thank all of our members who took the time to submit their respective award nominations for their coworkers and for the work performed by our awards board committee for reviewing and authorizing these deserved award nominations. I'd like to thank my executive team of Chief Jeff Johnson, Assistant Chief Scott Baitens, Assistant Chief Eric Zinzer, and Assistant Chief John Martin, who couldn't be with us tonight, and our command team who participated in the presentations and organization tonight. Without you all, this event wouldn't be possible. I'd also like to recognize our administrative assistant, Renee Landis. For the last several weeks, she's dedicated countless hours during the day, at night, and on weekends preparing these awards and making sure this event went off without a hitch. So thank you, Renee. I'd also like to thank our Parks and Recreation team, our Public Relations team for their assistance in coordinating the setup, the photography, the video recording, and the information sharing via social media. Thank you all. I'd also like to once again congratulate all citizens and department members recognized here this evening. In addition, I'd also like to thank those who attended this evening who may not have received an award, but yet you took the time to honor your colleagues with your presence, and I'm confident you'll share words of praise and support. I offer a heartfelt thank you to the family members of our firefighters, our dispatchers, our police officers and detectives who stand by our team members and their loved ones day and night, not knowing if Dad will return home safely or if Mom will safely finish her tour of duty. Your support does not go unnoticed, and you all have my highest praise and appreciation, for without you, this would not be possible. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to introduce Chaplain Michael Zerkich to perform our benediction.
Let us bow our heads. Lord, thank you so much for this gathering of highly competent people of all sorts, whether it's even our citizens of this city, but straight on through from our chief to our executive team all the way to our cadets. Tonight, you have visible evidence of bravery in all kinds of different skill sets that have kept Novi safe and a great place to live. So Lord, thank you for that, of which many were given awards tonight. But what's not given awards, Lord, is that so many times I've been out and been with these officers and firemen and heard the dispatchers and seen the administrative teams, that when a really awful situation comes up, the amount of compassion and caring and love that's given to people, even some of the people that made very bad life choices, instead of being harsh, they've been positive influences and caring, even in those most difficult situations. It's really amazing that you've given them the hearts as well as the minds to do their job. And we want to thank you for being with them and keeping them safe in their duties, as well as while they're away from their families, that you guard them. And for all the wonderful attributes that you've given the citizens of this city, as well as Oakland County and the state of Michigan. We know that, Lord, that none of this would happen without you. And so we want to say thank you, but also to continue to be with each and every one as they carry out their duties, as they do so many days and hours through both day and night, and do it in a humble yet caring and very, very skilled way that represents you as well as all of our citizens. Thank you, Lord, for this gathering today and all the great support that they've given the officers and firemen and everyone else here tonight. We say this through your Son. Amen. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chaplain Zerkich. I would remind all of our award winners there is an opportunity for photographs here on stage after the event, so please come forward if your family and friends would like to get those. All of our annual officer, firefighter, civilian, and volunteer, if you could please join us immediately following the ceremony. This concludes our 2020 annual awards ceremony. I appreciate you all coming. May God bless you and drive safe. Thank you.